today, a flop actor earns more than the top performing editor in this industry.
Okay.
And we are all in the business of content. People want to comment on your life, on your family, on your journalism. If you disagree with me on subjects. Don't make it personal. Men still get the wrong message a lot of time. Newsrooms are full of predators. And some of those who were let go of are back in positions of power, are being legitimized in more ways than one. And what are we doing about it? A lot of people write to me, and every time I put a photo on Instagram, people are like, "Ye to theek hai, par show kab aayega?" Which is nice, but I want to tell you and everyone else that
You'll be back.
I will be back. It'll be a better show, hopefully, and I want to do the show when I'm ready,
Okay.
when I know it's going to work.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Welcome to another edition of ANI Podcast with Smita Prakash. Today my guest is Palki Sharma Upadhyay. You've seen her on many television channels. She has been reporting and anchoring, and especially on WION television. She had a show called Gravitas, which was very successful. I spoke to her on a number of issues on television news, the future, the past, what it means like to be a TV journalist open to a lot of criticism, male bosses, the glass ceiling, and the future ahead. Take a look. Palki, thank you so much for coming to ANI Podcast with Smita Prakash. I'm so glad you're here. Want to chat so much about journalism, where TV journalism is headed, women in TV. But first, I want to start with your show, Gravitas, which it was a path-breaking show that you did on WION. And it was kind of different, of course, everybody liked your style of presentation and everything, but you decided to go swim against the tide. Instead of doing debates, you decided that's this explainer style that you will do. Was it your idea? Was it the channel? And how did you manage to stick on with that idea, despite the pressures probably to be like the others?
Right. First of all, thank you for having me here. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. You're so kind. You always say nice things about me. So when you asked me for this, I said, okay, I have to come and talk to you. About the show, I've been an anchor for about 20 years now. And over the years, I have done different slots, and I've seen TV newsrooms and TV news evolve. And I really enjoyed doing what I was doing because I could write, I could say what I wanted to do, experiment. In 2014, I think I first did my 9 o'clock debates.
This was before you had done reporting, on-ground reporting and everything.
and a lot of anchoring. Like I started with the breakfast show. I, moved on to different slots. I really enjoyed the breakfast show because that's the time when most of the leaders, editors are away. So you can really experiment and do your own thing, and nobody bothers if you're not making some ghastly mistakes on air. But like I said, 2014 is when I did the first debates, and I was miserable. I did not enjoy it because I don't like being uncivil.
Okay.
And that's what TV news had become. And I just went home very unhappy, and I was so miserable that I left TV, and I thought I've left it for good. But it did not last. So when I came back, I was very clear that these are things that I'm not going to do. And I did not even, frankly, come to do a 9 o'clock or a prime time show. I was told to do something on South Asia, which I thought was a good idea, and I could, create my own content and sort of do something. Somebody put it very nicely that was the time when the channel was also taking shape. So it was benign ignorance on the part of some, or we just. I was very clear that I did not want too many talking heads or too many. I did not want acrimony. If people are talking, they should make their point and move on. And over the years, one also interacted with people who were not in the news industry. And when you ask them, they would say, "Hum to news dekhte nahi hai." To kyun nahi dekhte hain news? People are watching all kinds of content, right? I think because they were not getting value for their time. And beyond a point, how much tamasha. I mean, if you really had to watch it, you would probably watch Big Boss.
Yeah.
So I thought, and I was not enjoying it. I'm sure there are people who are good at it, and there is a market for reality TV, and there are people who enjoy it, but it was not me. So that's where we started. I had a good team, and the show evolved when it began. I don't think any of us had this idea that, okay, this is how it's going to be. We took it one day at a time. We did the stories that we liked. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it did not work. We just went with the tide. I had an editor who was very open to experimentation.
Did you do things that you thought the audience wanted, or did you do like, okay, this is how we're going to do news? How does it work?
I think it's a mix of both. You do, if you're putting out something, you want people to watch it. And you want to be aligned with what they're thinking. And increasingly in TV, I think people come to you as much for information as for validation. People write to you saying, I read this story, why didn't you do it? If you've already read the story, why do you want to hear it from me? You already know what it is. So people come for all sorts of things, and you want to be in sync with what they're thinking. But there are also times when you want to do a story because you want to do that story. Like abortion in the US. That story did not get us views. And we went to town with it. And because some of us felt very strongly about it. And we thought that even if this does not have an audience or the kind of audience that we're used to, we'll still do it and we'll still lead with it because this is an important story. So I guess you have to sort of arrive at a balance and do a mix of both.
But I'll get to the abortion story and foreign news and, the lack of interest at times in India for events which are happening outside of India unless it directly impacts on India. There's a lot that I've seen that happens. But anyway, I'll come to that. But again, the explainer bit, which I asked you, how did you get to that, okay, this is my story and this is the explainer that I'm going to do?
I think a lot of it came from personal experience. I'm raising two children who are very curious and who ask questions. And I remember going to Israel just before Prime Minister Modi's visit, and I came back and I was telling something, and my son was, I think, still 5 or 6 years old. And then after I finished everything, he said, "But you've not told me what's a Jew." And although he was young, but it sort of, that was a penny drop moment that there are a lot of people out there, we deal with abbreviations and acronyms and we assume that everyone's on the same page and we don't simplify and we use long sentences and very convoluted ideas, and a TV viewer does not have the luxury of going back to, now they do when they watch it on the phone. But, even when we were told that in a newspaper you can reread that same line thrice to make sense. And I still try to read some of those, court copies which make no sense to me on the front page. One sentence is a paragraph long. But for the TV audience, you have to make your content accessible. The onus is on you to get people to watch and not on them to watch. So we try to simplify.
The whole process of this simplification or explanation, the criticism many people make, especially print journalists make, is that this simplification is actually dumbing down. You're presuming that your viewer doesn't know things. But like you said, that's our job, to make things understandable to everybody, not just the specialists who are clicking your story because they are law-beat journalists who are reading, or think tankers who want to know about Ukraine situation. It's not those people. It's across the board, right? That's what you were saying, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, and it's important to decide who is your audience. For me, it was a blank slate, and I remember telling my team once that everyone who understands English should want to watch. If they're watching news in English, they should want to watch what we're doing. That's a very broad segment to cater to. If you attend strategy meetings, they'll give you TG 15 to 45, or advertiser is looking at 25 to. That's a very. They try to restrict it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that anyone who understands English and wants to make sense of what's happening in the US midterm election should want to come and watch you. So then you have to make it accessible to all.
So your show, even though it was like on an English channel, you had viewers who were whose primary language was not English. People still liked it simply because some of them who I've spoken to was because they agreed with your editorial line. You pakka took an editorial line. You didn't.
It was an editorial show. It was the edit page of the channel.
हाँ.
That's how we.
You were ready for that at that stage? You didn't think कि वो थोड़ा neutral होना चाहिए, both sides of the point. That
neutrality is a. I remember reading something very interesting that in the pre-digitization age of news, credibility was a commodity. Both sidism was something that news media sort of adopted as a strategy. Because the advertiser wanted a broader section of the audience to watch and to try and buy what they were selling.
So it wasn't an ethical decision.
It was a marketing. It was a business decision.
Okay.
Yeah. But with the advent of digital, news and the internet, things opened up a lot, and now we are not looking at all the viewers. Even if we would want everyone to watch, but we are looking at audience communities. And audience communities are held by some glues like identity, like ideology, like an editorial line. So that we are not looking for people to only watch our news. We want people to watch, like, share, comment,
interact completely.
And they will be compelled to do it only when something resonates. So also, what are we doing in our reporting? We are looking at what Trump has tweeted or what Biden has tweeted and doing breaking news of that. So I'm already on Twitter. I've already seen it. I don't need you to do that. Either you make sense of what this tweet means for me, or just I don't need you. That there was a time when we were relaying to the people what people in power are doing or saying. But now that communication is direct.
Okay. So journalism, that as we learnt it, was what happened, when it happened, where it happened, why it happened.
That is already being communicated.
That's already done.
Yeah.
So you want to go beyond. You think
you
that
have to
it
value
was time.
add.
Yeah, you were value adding in your show that you did, but you'd already done that part of journalism first.
Obviously, because
the reporting part.
Yeah, you grew up doing that, and that's the.
But then you keep going back to it also, right? You went to Ukraine. You did that reporting too. You feel that as anchors, it's necessary to do reporting as well, to to be with the story.
I don't think only as anchors. I think we started an experiment which worked very well over the last 1 year. Not just anchors, even the people who were writing, the people on the desk were accompanying me to the field for assignments. Because the age of, again, restricting a journalist to the desk or to input or to research or to guest relations is fast getting over. I think the person who is writing a story on Ukraine on the desk will be able to write a much better story if he also appreciates the logistical challenges that a reporter faces, what happens on the ground. So, and also you could say that for whatever reasons, resource crunch bhi tha, bahut sari cheezein thi, but we decided that an anchor can be a reporter, can also be a writer, can also do research. We have to learn all the functions of a newsroom. So with the Quad Summit in Japan, with Ukraine, with Sri Lanka, I've had traditional desk writers go with me, see what happens on the field, talk to people. And really, when they came back with a much wider understanding of what it takes to build a story.
And greater sensitivity, because, Palki, very often the frustration one faces is that when, a cameraman has, or a stringer or a reporter, whoever has taken great trouble to get a story from the ground, but it gets killed at the table, at the edit table. It happens in print also, where there's a ground report and it's like from some remote part of India, like maybe a Naxal, who has surrendered, gone back to society, started a school of his own, has 15 students whom he's teaching, and his wife is also joining in. It's a human interest story, comes in from one very difficult part. Now the reporter, the cameraman would have gone and got it with such great difficulty. It never makes it to newspapers. It never makes it to the mainstream media. It's just not of interest. This is where I feel that especially small town reporters have this problem, that their stories never get told.
Yeah, I think when you throw people at the deep end and make them do what someone else is doing, it also builds empathy. They understand what the other person goes through to bring something to the table, like you said, or even people in the PCR, all kinds of functions. I've tried to really experiment over the past 5 years.
Amalgamate all the things.
People who are writing stories have been told to manage an event, and they've done fabulously well, and they also feel that they're growing. They're not chained to their desk, as it were.
So there's a lot of talk that happens at the TV, the whole model of TV is so TRP driven, and that is why you are facing a credibility problem in the sense that people don't trust television news anymore. Do you agree with that view?
I think I agree with that to the extent that in the attempt to go viral, we are sometimes making a mockery of ourselves. And while people may be consuming something that has gone viral, and you'll get the views, but then it's a slippery slope. Then they'll never come back to you for something. They will not trust you, like you said. There's a credibility crisis, and all of it stems. I feel really bad for reporters who are mocked at when they do something really silly on your bathtub PTCs and all of those things.
Yeah.
They are really pushed to deliver and to do something different. And so the problem is not with that reporter or that anchor. The problem is with the editor who's letting it go on air. I don't want to make a sweeping statement, Smita, but I think that in the media industry in general and in India in particular, we have a leadership crisis more than a credibility crisis.
Okay.
We are not trying to innovate. We are not experimenting, neither with the business model nor with the content formats. I look at memes and WhatsApp forwards, and they're mocked at all the time ki WhatsApp se uthate. But WhatsApp forwards have so much more creativity than, say, a pollution story. 10 साल पहले भी वही कर रहे थे हम. आनंद विहार बस अड्डे पे AQI इतना है. एक लंग एक्सपर्ट, 2 बच्चे खांसते. The story has not changed. 10 years later, we are telling the same story in the same way. But people are coming up with so many better ways to say the same thing on social media. So why is that creativity missing in the newsrooms? I would not like to believe that. I think people sitting at the top don't want to do anything different. The pandemic forced us to make some changes in terms of technology. Had it not happened, maybe we would have kept sending OB vans 10 years later to do this. I mean, we are not experimenting. Same with business models. Today, the person who's starting in a newsroom is earning less than your domestic help.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Why would good talent stay?
Yeah.
And why would they be inspired to do something else?
And Palki, I've been in this line for 30 years. You've also been in this line for 2 decades. The journalists who were coming to us were people who had taken the civil services, not cleared it, and then came to journalism in the 30, 20 years later. But now, journalism schools have mushroomed. We have thousands of news channels, legal, illegal, satellite TV. If I count the YouTube channels and everybody, literally we have doing content, Hindi, regional languages, English. There are jobs galore, but nobody stays. There is a frustration that kids feel when they join journalism. They're not able to stay on in the profession. Why is there so much of lack of talent? What is it? Even though there are so many journalists who are being churned out from these institutes.
People ask, what is their growth path? And how do you tell the growth path? I mean, it's very slow growth for sure. The only people who stay on for 2-3 decades are people who are either crazy and really want to do this.
Yeah.
Or people who are not good at it and will not find anything else anywhere.
Yeah.
As pathetic as it sounds, that's how it is. The really good people are moving on, because how long are you going to tell them that you will not get weekends off and you will not even get the salary that your MBA cousin is getting for the next 10 years?
And you will have no work-life balance. वो तो out of question.
It is out of the question, and and for a long time, it's very thrilling, to be doing things in the newsroom, to stay very late, to chase a story till the very end. But beyond a point, everyone has EMIs to pay and everyone has families to look after, and you have to make it worth their while. In 20 years, I have never heard any business team come and say, अब तो market बहुत अच्छा है, इस साल अच्छे hike दे दो. Recession or no recession, we are always in cost cutting mode. Always. I mean, I remember going to Ukraine and I thought that I went with a team of 4. And this is the mojo age where a reporter is sent with one phone and one selfie stick. So I thought I've come with a big team and we'll do some great stuff. And I'd like to believe we did. We were doing stories every day. We were doing a show. We were trying to... And then I see international channels with teams of 30, 40 people who've blocked entire floors in 2 hotels. One where they want to stay because it's a 5-star, and one where the view is very good because they can create a good frame. And I thought, there's no way we'll be able to match this because we're always going to be short of money and resources.
Palki, if I may go back to the era of, in the 80s, the heyday of American television networks, NBC, ABC and all, they used to come to India for all the big stories, like Rajiv Gandhi assassination and those kind of stories. And they used to come like that. They, I was working like as a stringer with them, attached to them, like a gopher. Mm-hmm. That was the word, who'll get the information. There was no Google, if you remember those days. So you had to get information and give them so that they could file their stories. But they would come literally with 20-man teams, and they would come with gear, camera gear and all that gear. They would book satellite, costed hundreds of dollars. No way that India could match. Of course, we didn't have private television also in those days. But what I'm trying to say is that those guys then collapsed under the weight of their own, inability to budget their news. They shut bureaus across the world. International news went off their thing. They depended on agencies to cover international news. They couldn't do it. India, on the other hand, it's been lean and mean because हमारे पास resources शुरू से ही नहीं थे.
That's fine. I get your point. You should not overspend. At the end of the day, it's a business and you have to look at the bottom line and you have to make it work for everyone. But I'm saying that we are not ready to stretch the limits of our imagination. Today, a flop actor earns more than the top performing editor in this industry.
Okay.
And we are all in the business of content. So why is it that we cannot... I love giving this example. A documentary on Chernobyl will be watched on Netflix with a 500 rupee subscription. But the same documentary on a TV news channel will not be watched. Documentaries chalti hi nahi hai is what the sales team will tell you. Because we are not investing. If what we did in my show, it was resource investment. It's very easy to get guests, most of whom are not paid. They're just,
Sure, nobody's paid.
Yeah, a lot of, they're not paid and they just come and they give their time and we create content, and it takes a lot of effort, I'm sure, for the anchor to put himself or herself out there every day to discuss a lot of topics and
it's
impromptu
cheap way of doing content, frankly.
Yeah. But if you're going to build 1 hour of content, you need writers, you need editors, you need people who design graphics, you need video. That is resource investment.
Yeah.
So I think that there are gains to be made, and I think it will make business sense if we create a good product because people are now spoiled for choice.
Okay. See, there was this whole talk about the amount of influence that, say, a BBC or an Al Jazeera has. If you see their population of UK, right, and you compare that with one channel of BBC and the international influence that it has, and compare that with India's population, we probably have more TV, people who have TVs are probably 7 or 8 times the population of UK, and yet we don't have an international channel. Even though we have so many domestic channels, is it time now for India or Indian channels to invest in making a global channel? Of course, WION was there, but it doesn't really have that impact of being, of being a mover and shaker like, say, an Al Jazeera or a BBC.
I think we are 10, 20 years late. We should have done it then. We should definitely, there's an urgent need for us to do this, to take control of the narrative, to tell our story right, and to tell it to the whole world. And there is a market. You mentioned WION. By the time I left, only 40% of our audience was based in India. 60% was outside India. And these were not just NRIs. These were people from all over the world, all ethnicities, all countries, who were engaging with us, who were writing to us. And that shows that the world is interested in what we have to say, in our perspective, in our point of view. I remember earlier this summer, we were in Dubai, and we were having lunch, and we asked for the check. And it came with a huge slice of cake. And I said, I did not order it. And so the head chef came and he said, this is from the Rajapaksas. Sorry, what? I'm a Sri Lankan. I watch your coverage. Sitting in Dubai, on Sri Lanka, from a channel that's run out of Noida. And he says, I really like what you say, and this is complimentary. And so you strike a chord. I think there is so much to be done. We are not thinking big. Not on an institutional level, and not
as a
individual.
country level. Do you think the government should have done? I mean, there was this DD International. Nobody will believe the government language, right?
It may not fly. And see, if the government does it, then you'll say that they're peddling their agenda. If they don't do it, then they're blamed for not supporting. At the end of the day, if you're talking about free media and a business, then you have to create a business model that is going to work.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I said, that at the leadership level, people are not thinking big enough.
So why, on the other hand, if I was to come back to audiences, why is it that Indians are not really interested in international news all that much? If you watch the debates, if we just see prime time is rarely anything to do with international news other than Pakistan. And that also if they have done something like attacking us, or if they are collapsing because of whatever reason, there's a coup or there is a jalsa or something like that, like an Imran Khan issue. It's that. Or else if it is China, Galwan, that's a story. Ukraine somehow captured a little bit of news, not just because of the Indian students, but it did capture a little bit of. But other than that, international news is just hardly anywhere.
Because we don't do it. We don't do it like that. I think the Indian audience is more aware and interested and invested in what's happening in the world than people in a lot of other, especially in the West. They're very inward looking. I also remember reading this study that said that people in developing countries are more interested in global affairs than people in developed countries who don't want to look beyond what's happening in their life. There is a higher chance of an Indian being able to tell which city falls in which state in the US than an American being able to.
Vice versa. Yeah, correct.
Right? So we are interested, but we have to, like I said, make that story accessible. If you start giving out results of the midterm election without explaining to the viewer the format and how it is different from our elections, then beyond a point they'll lose interest.
I think Americans only don't understand what their elections are about.
That's another point. But
it's so complicated and the
is.
results take ever so long. So they themselves don't know. But you're right, like you said, that there's a lot of ignorance about. See, that also comes with a great deal of prosperity. They don't need to know.
They don't need to know.
Right? Whereas in India, Indians are very politically aware. Why? Because we interact so much, or ordinary Indians need to know कि police वाला क्या करता है, MLA क्या करता है, सरपंच क्या है. The need to interact is great because they control everything, right? So that's why. But you think that it's the editors or the owners of television media who are, probably there's a dissonance that they don't understand what the viewers want?
Possibly. And they don't want to... a lot of them are busy copying each other.
So, you had a successful show in WION, and, what one saw in social media was like, such a catharsis. When you left, it was like, oh my God, why she left? Palki ma'am, we'll miss you. And probably it's then that I realized, that there was so much of a fan following you had. So why did you leave when you were doing so well? Why at the top? Then why did you leave?
It's always better to leave at the top. Than at
Yeah,
the
now you're
bottom.
sounding like Sunil Gavaskar.
No, I left because I thought that whatever I wanted to do, I had done there. And I envision, I don't want to sound pompous, but what I'm doing and the team that I'm creating in a certain way. And if I'm not being able to do that to my satisfaction, then I don't want to do it. And I think in that sense, I'm lucky that I can just walk out of something and say, and I've done it in the past, I don't like something, I just say, I don't want to do this. I will find something else. And life has been good, and I have struggled and sort of swam against the tide, as you put it sometimes, and it's been, but I found my path. So I was, again, not enjoying what I was doing. I did not like the direction that we were taking. I think the we were doing news curation, and we had to move to the next step, and we had to tell the India story in a more compelling fashion. I think somewhere I did not see that happening beyond a point.
So tell me, you were talking about reporters, like those who have to do wear combat clothes in the newsroom, or they have to, do a flood story with water around them because of graphics in a bathtub. So these are decisions that the reporter can't take.
Yeah.
What about the anchor? Can the anchor decide what is the story, what is the storyline in all channels? Because you've worked in several channels. How much clout does an anchor hold in deciding what should be the storyline and how will I take this forward?
I think it depends on the anchor.
Okay.
There are anchors, and I'm not saying prime time or non-prime time. There are anchors who are very clear about what they want to say, and that comes through. And then there are TP readers who will not beyond a point, say, why is this running? And those are the anchors who resonate with the audience.
Who? The
No,
TP?
no. The ones who have a clear point of view. There can be disagreement. Eventually, the editorial line holds in most cases, I would like to believe. But in my career, I've seen anchors who have gone up to the editor and said, I'm not okay. It happened with me, I remember once. I always like to write what I'm going to say in my words. Even though there are very good copy editors, I feel more confident if I have done the typing. And so I remember what I wrote. I went to the studio, and then while I was reading off the teleprompter, I saw that somebody had changed my lines and said very clearly that this is why you should not vote for such and such party.
Wow.
I would never say that, right? And so and halfway through the sentence, I corrected myself and I said something else, and I ended it the way I wanted. And then I went out and I asked, who has done this? And they said, the editor changed the lines. And I went to that editor and I said that.
Without consulting you?
Yes. And this was before WION, I have to say. And I said, you will not do this. And he was taken by surprise because I don't think he was used to being challenged. And I said, this is not done and I will not accept it. And if you disagree with what I'm saying, you have to tell me and you have to convince me. And I did not stay there for very long after that. But this happens.
That's what I wanted to say. Is this a one-off thing or does it happen very often with people?
I think it also depends on, people don't mess with people who will call them out and say that you won't do this.
And it's hard, right? Because you're already on air and you're reading, and mid-sentence to change the sentence to realize somebody has played funny.
Yeah.
The fight in the newsroom before is a different matter. Yeah. But on air, these kind of things that could happen. those, yeah. And the other thing is that I just saw I think it was, yeah, Rahul Shivshankar said on air that he took on, remember he McAdams,
Yeah.
that thing that where
yeah.
he put the wrong name, and he said he took the flak at that time. But what had happened was that whoever was feeding in the name in the teleprompter did the mistake. Right? Now you can throw that reporter under the bus, or the teleprompter operator who throw that person under the bus, or you can take on the flak yourself. He says, I took on that as a mistake that I made. But this is a more serious thing which you're talking about, where the editorial line is being tampered with.
There's a lot of difference. You take the credit for the great lines that your team writes and for all the work that goes behind, so you take the flak also. But when someone has deliberately changed something because they think that you are not going to apply your mind and just read whatever is written, is problematic.
Okay. And see, there are many times that handouts come from governments, and I'm not talking about now, I'm talking about over the years. Handouts come that this is what you should speak today. This is what is going. Earlier, to wohi pada jata tha when it was Doordarshan and All India Radio, that government officers used to read the news, the government. And today, when I hear people saying, "Oh, that was such lovely times. There was no noise, there was no cacophony. We got the news clean, where we had Salma Sultan reading it out and things." After telling them that was the only news and that was written by government officers, and you believed it, that's the only news that happened. Pradhan Mantri yahan gaya, Pradhan Mantri ne ye kiya, that's all. No question of Pradhan Mantri ne kyun kiya.
Yeah.
Right? Today you're hearing it all. You're hearing different points of view. So it's noisy, but at least you're getting different points of view. So now when it changed, but still governments put pressure on newsrooms, on editors, that ye padho, put this out. How much pushback does it happen in newsrooms, against the government line?
So I've been out of the Congress BJP thing for a while now, and the subjects that I dealt with, we willingly took, I wouldn't say the government line, but the India line, and that sort of worked. I think there is pushback. I remember this is more than 10 years back. I think some ministry calling up saying, "What is running on your ticker?" And so we all, first of all, we joked saying that if the minister is watching our ticker, then who is doing his job? But those things used to happen, and we would argue and sometimes not run it, or run both sides of what was going on, and those things did happen.
Palki, it's a known thing. I mean, the joke or the sarcasm used to be that there was a certain politician, very powerful politician, who was known as bureau chief.
Yeah.
Who the acronym given to him was bureau chief because one, he was very close to many senior journalists, but the agenda setting was done at 5 p.m. in that chai
And they were
samosa
deciding
period.
which anchor is going to do which story.
Yeah.
Those things were also happening. Isko hata do. This anchor is not good. So there has always been pressure.
And
Again,
especially finance ministers on business channels. There was a time and era
there are
where
some ministries where you can't go against. Like defense is one of them. I mean, you will not get access.
Yeah.
If you question. But then you also have to see what is. It's all very murky. Sometimes people question just for the sake of
So
questioning.
if you question defense, I've seen many times that you question and you're considered an anti-national, you're dubbed immediately.
Yeah.
That one defense beat only is done by journalists, by reporters who are sons and daughters of army officers. The brats do it, and they call themselves brats. I'm not calling them. But again, any questioning, even the services get very annoyed and label you and don't understand that questioning is something that a journalist has to do.
Yeah.
It's not that there's an anti-national bent of mind, but do you feel that there are other beats in journalism where this happens also, where they just shut access immediately?
I think yes.
Yeah, isn't it?
I mean, worst case scenario, they'll not send a spokesperson to your channel.
Yeah, that's another thing that happens.
Then they'll say you're not giving our side of the story. But you're not giving your side of the story yourself.
Yeah.
So it's become and I think it's a healthy fight because no matter which side says what, the fact is that channels and news platforms of all descriptions are operating in this country. They're being trolled, they're being questioned, they're being investigated, some of them, but they are all running.
Yeah.
So there is space for everyone and all kinds of opinion and points of view.
So tell me, Palki, do you think that that there are enough firewalls in place in TV channels because it's live TV, right? Immediately stuff goes on air. Are there enough firewalls to filter out fake news and viral news which are, not credible?
Increasingly not. No.
No.
I think the viral editor is setting the agenda now for newsrooms.
Really?
Yeah. Sometimes I feel that अगर Twitter बंद हो जाएगा तो फिर channel कैसे चलेंगे? Because we are all looking at what is trending.
Can we all send out an appeal to Elon Musk? Mat band karo.
I don't know.
So there's a viral editor?
No, it's like a whatever is viral. Whatever is viral.
Okay.
It's wordplay. Whatever is viral is basically setting the agenda. Today, this story is going viral. So everyone wants to do the 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. debate on the story which is viral.
Increasingly after COVID, I've seen one newspaper reading as a physical thing is not happening. So you get your news from social media, and usme your bias comes in because what comes in your Google feed, in your Facebook feed, in your Twitter feed is the bias which is there in your mind that gets reflected. Whereas when you open a newspaper, you're seeing various things.
You're consuming the bias of the newspaper then.
Of the newspaper. That's also a point,
so
right?
So some social media star is a front page story जिसको 10,000 लोगों से ज़्यादा 150 करोड़ के देश में कोई जानता नहीं होगा. But he is on the front page. Why? There is so much else that is happening in this country. Because the newspaper editor thinks that this is a front page story. So there are all kinds of biases that we
but see,
negotiate.
It's also a vicious circle. Because I've seen some of these experts who come on television and they found their way into political parties. They became spokespersons also. वो किया क्या? They were sitting in social media and basically with a little bit of gyan. They didn't have a body of work behind them, right? Yeah. But you troll and you make these smart aleck comments, you get more and more followers, then what you're saying is becoming a hashtag. You start doing that. There's nothing that you've done before or after. So that happens. Now, because you've got a X number of followers, you make it to the TV screen, you come there because, people will watch, usko retweets mil jayenge. So you're on TV screen. Once you're on TV screen, you get called to conferences and seminars and then sponsors say, usko bulao, we'll give you sponsorship. वो आ गए. उसके बाद क्या होता है? Political parties sit up and say, aha, very interesting. He or she speaks very well. So let's make them. कोई ideology नहीं, कुछ नहीं.
But that's the same with film stars, no? I mean, film stars who become netas, I mean, ऐसे देखा जाए, what have they done? But they have influenced. Netas beyond a point are influencers who commit themselves to doing good work, I think. And I don't know how many of them end up doing it.
Somehow we don't expect much from our netas, but we expect more from journalists. At least we think that, those guys then when they become spokesperson, they say social media, television, news, koi research nahi karte. Bhai, tum log kahan se aaye ho? Usi social media se to aaye ho. I just feel increasingly that these TikTokers, influencers, they are your journalists today. They are the ones, who haven't gone through the rigors of journalism, but they've become your experts. They are the ones who are giving gyan on television. So then I quite understand when people say that the TV journalism model is breaking down or has broken down. So do you see any hope in the future?
See, I think mass communication has become a two-way street now. Right? The viewer is telling you in real time what they're watching, what they like, what they don't like, bouquets, brickbats, everything is coming as you read the news. You can see the YouTube comments, a lot of which are nonsense. But a lot of them are also active feedback. So I think that people who are serious about being in the business and serious about telling the stories that they want to tell will survive and thrive. Everybody has to make that effort every day. You can't be cynical. You can't be saying that, oh, Pakistan does it all the time, so this time if they have fired some rocket, it's okay. 20 साल से 25 साल से पाकिस्तान ये कर रहा है. No, it's a story every day. You have to. I don't know if I'm making sense to you,
Yeah,
but
yes, absolutely.
I think that we are in a phase where the real stars will shine, and those who are not pulling their weight are going to be left
It's like,
behind.
when the stone pelting used to happen in Kashmir. So the newsroom gets tired, right?
Yeah.
ये तो हर Friday होता है, मैम.
हाँ.
क्या करना है? And I say, no, you have to go there. You have to put a camera out there. It is a story. And then when the stone pelting stopped,
Yeah,
even then it's a story.
it's a story.
You still put your camera out there and you wait and watch.
You have to be excited about it every day.
Yes. You have to, and as editors, we have to tell our, the newbies who come in or the new journalists who come in that the fact that there are no stone pelters every Friday is a story. So the cameraman also says ना कि क्या कोई आया ही नहीं, हम क्या करेंगे यहाँ पे? नहीं खड़े हो ना कि कोई आया नहीं, वो भी स्टोरी है भैया.
हमारा प्रोफेशन है ना, it demands a lot of commitment.
हाँ.
You have to be there every day. And I remember being told by one of my bosses something very good, that to build a relationship with your viewer, if you say that you're going to be there at 9 o'clock, be there at 9 o'clock, come what may. That's the promise that you've made to them. They have not made that promise to you. They will watch one day, not watch for 3 days, then again come in, but they know that you'll be there. When a big story happens, they'll know where to go. And it takes a lot of commitment. And after all these years, I still can't understand how there are anchors who walk in half an hour before their show, just put on makeup and sit and start reading. So you still have to be a little nervous before your show. You still have to, at the end of a show, I mean, we've had so many discussions every day saying this story did not go the way we want. You have to be excited.
Yeah.
You have to be nervous. You have to challenge yourself constantly. Only then will you survive.
And I think the reason for your success also is that you respect your audience. I've seen that anchors who are not talking down to their audience, they are the ones who resonate. Dil se baat karte hain kind of a thing. Yeah. That matters, isn't it?
I think so. I think people are giving you an entry into their rooms.
Yeah.
At 9 o'clock when they're sitting with their family or doing whatever they're doing. Time is very valuable. If you're giving me your time, then I better make it worth your time.
Palki, we spoke about bouquets and brickbats. I now want to come into this, which I spoke with Navika and I spoke with Arnab also when he was here. The mental well-being of women journalists and even men, I guess. So much hate comes in on the way of love also, but hate too comes in. So much of trolling happens. How do you take it? I'll give you a personal example. When COVID happened and Rohit Sardana got COVID and there was a kill list, where people put in names of people, TV news anchors who should die of COVID. Usme Rohit ka naam bhi tha. And my name was also there in that thing. I just took it as, forget it, how does it matter? I got admitted to hospital when that Delta wave happened. Right. And I was fighting it out. Theek hai ki ho gaya, I'm in hospital. Rohit died. In the first day that I was in the hospital, he died. And somewhere it hit me so bad.
I can imagine.
I was like, oh my God, they were making a kill list and Rohit is gone. How many more will go? Stupid maybe that it shouldn't affect me, but maybe it was the medicines, I mean, they put you on steroids and all those things.
We're humans.
Humans.
I mean, it affects us.
Right?
We may say that it doesn't affect us, but it affects us.
Yeah.
And increasingly, I worry that although my children don't have access to these platforms, but they have friends, people talk, people say all sorts of things. People want to comment on your life, on your family, on your journalism. If you disagree with me on subjects. Don't make it personal. But that's why they're called trolls. And I have a policy to, I know that you give it back as good as you get it.
Yeah, I try.
I try to not respond.
Yeah, I've seen. You
I don't. Because I don't think I want to give them even that satisfaction.
Maybe that's a good way. I will get to being that.
Because I don't want, I cannot stoop to their level. And I don't see what their problem, and what amazes me is how somebody says something and a whole ecosystem swoops down
Yeah.
on you. And some of those people are people you worked with. Some of those people are people you don't even know. So my first reaction always is, why you?
Yeah.
Like, where
But
did
you're
this,
doing this conversation in your head.
in my head, and
Why you is in your head.
Yes,
You don't write
I
it.
never
on the-
write it because I'm like, okay, if this is what you've chosen. I've seen friends do this. People I used to call friends. It's very hurtful.
Yeah.
Because you can always pick up the phone and call and say why you did not agree with this or what you found wrong with it. But your idea is not to question me. Your idea is to get followers by stone pelting on social media at me. So I will not give you that satisfaction.
Fellow journalists do that.
Fellow
Yeah.
journalists do that. And there's this new trend of people reviewing your stories on YouTube.
Oh,
Yeah, people do that. In the UK, I did something on hijab, and then two people are sitting and playing my video and critiquing it and playing the second clip and critiquing it, and then they're getting like, I don't know how many lakh views. So in my own way, I started telling myself that they want to get views and followers by association. You should not give them that. They just want to engage with you. And
Okay.
this is their way of staying relevant.
They haven't reported the hijab issue, but they're reporting on the reporting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happens all the time. You do anything or what, you will see it on YouTube.
Even
There's,
in India, it's there. It's the so-called fact checkers.
Yeah.
They're not fact checking.
that's
Many
another-
of them are sitting and actually just, अरे तुमने एक कैमरा वहाँ क्यों भेजा, तुमने वहाँ नहीं भेजा. This is fact checking, क्या?
And a lot of these people, say use all sorts of terms and pejoratives for
Yes.
journalists, are themselves people who once wanted to do things in newsrooms and did not deliver or did not survive. And so it's a case of sour grapes. It's their problem.
They comment, and I've seen senior women journalists also commenting on attire of women journalists. And it's hurtful.
It is.
And women get it more. I'm sure you have also, ऐसे वाले earrings पहन के आ गए, ऐसे वाले कपड़े पहन के आ गए, jacket क्यों नहीं पहना, Indian clothes क्यों पहना, बिंदी क्यों नहीं पहनी, बिंदी क्यों पहना. These are what? Please listen to the content. No, they're not listening to content. It's how you're attired. Even when I do this YouTube thing, I'm sure there'll be a whole thing that Palki ma'am तो बहुत सुंदर लग रही थी. Because a whole lot of thing is that.
Yeah.
It's about presentation.
A lot of these rules apply only to women. We are supposed to look a certain way. We are supposed to, if we are too soft and smile too much, then we are diffident. If we are too aggressive, then we are rude. There's never a good fit. आप सबको खुश तो कर ही नहीं सकते. And there are rules about, I think over the past few years, one by one, I've thrown all the rules out of the window. I want to wear jhumkas with a jacket, I will wear it. You don't like it, don't watch it. But whose definition of presentable is it? And what is good?
So, Palki, you are senior enough now to take these decisions.
Yeah.
Like I said this to Navika also. Like, that now some of us are in this, position of seniority where we can take this decision. So we can make the changes in our newsrooms. We can send out women in conflict zones. It costs more to send a woman out in conflict zone. This is what I want to tell. I appreciate channels which send out women into conflict zones to do reporting because it means double the kharcha.
Absolutely.
Right? It means that separate room. Cameraman के लिए अलग room, reporter के लिए अलग room. Otherwise, they can share a room. It means that you can't travel at night, and if you're traveling at night, you put a guard with that person. There's a whole lot of things that go, stuff that at my time I couldn't do in many places. Nowadays it's easier because we guys can take that decision. Did you in your positions, did you take that decision that even if a woman anchor doesn't fit a particular standard, which most channels, that you will continue to fight her cause?
I have. And there was a situation when I was told to take somebody off air because of weight, and she was miserable, and she'd gone through some issues health wise, and she said, I'm working on it, and I knew she's working on it. But this happens. I remember when I was expecting my first child, and I told my boss about it. I was told, but you have to come back in shape quickly. And the congratulations followed later. And he was not a mean person, but this is how they are programmed. And I do not like it.
Yeah.
So we go through so many things. I mean, also there are so many departments and newsrooms which still have male bosses. They don't understand why is it that when a child falls sick, I have been in a situation where I remember my daughter was, I think, a year old, and she had an acute ear infection, and she was crying, and I left for work very early when my children were very young, and I have always believed in them being independent, and everyone in the family sort of divides the chores and handles.
It takes a village.
Yeah, but on that day she was being very clingy, and I said I have to go to work, and everyone said okay, she'll be fine. But somewhere I went there with that, and it doesn't happen with me very often. I can be very dispassionate about some things, and I'm like, this is a project, I have to do this. My work is as important as everything else. But I reached office, I got ready for the show, and the headlines rolled. And after the first headline, I started crying.
Okay.
And because I was not on air, and the team was very good, and the PCR guys, they went into a break. And I said, I know she's fine, but I just don't like being here. And then nobody said anything to me.
Even now, I think you're choking when you're remembering
It's
that.
very sad. It's very, and for weeks, I worried that I may have appeared as less committed to my work because I did this. Because no man would ever sit in a studio and cry and say, I have a sick child at home.
And then you overcompensated, I'm sure.
You try to do that. It's very sad. And have you seen that Sabbita ad? Where this woman goes for a job and, and she says, the interviewer says, okay, is this your first time? And she said, yeah, when I told them I'm pregnant, they stopped giving me any projects. So I'm saying that these things still exist. I was reading yesterday's newspaper, the UN parity report. We're still far away from gender parity. Salaries, all sorts of things. So it is not a level playing field. Whether it's assignments, whether it's promotion, whether it's giving you the space, people who do karobar are promoted faster. I don't do it. So then I will never be...
Explain this now.
Karobar.
Those who don't know, yeah.
Karobar is a bar in a car in the simplest of terms. After your shift ends, you stand outside in the parking lot, put your glasses on the roof of your car, drink, chat, gossip, and then go home. It is unsafe because a lot of people are drinking and driving.
This is after the newsroom bulletin.
Yes. And it happens, it's part of the newsroom culture, I believe. And it's a great place to bond. I have never done it in 2 decades. And there was a time when I felt that I'm not going to that smoking room and I'm not doing karobar. I'm being left out everywhere. But I couldn't get myself to do it. So I'm saying that we have broken a lot of barriers, but there are still boys' clubs.
Even when you do beat journalism, you've done foreign beat, you know this, right? That there are times where you hang around, or the men hang around, not women, but the male reporters can hang around in bars for long hours with people, get the news out, smoking rooms, as you said. And women diffident, I guess, cannot do that. At least in our culture, it's hard. In America or in UK, in Europe, it's okay, hota hai. But especially women who have children back home, then you make that choice that you got to go back, or you can't do that.
For me, honestly, I know a lot of people struggle with that. I have never had problems with long hours or weird shifts. I have very good backup at home. My problem is that men still get the wrong message a lot of times. And if my choice is between appearing a little snobbish and reserved and appearing too open and too friendly, then I'd take the first one. I don't want anyone to get the wrong message. I'm really not interested in anybody.
Yeah,
I want to do my work and do it well.
You remember the Me Too movement and all. You think that men have learned after that these are the boundaries you don't?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so. And Me Too is we in the media tell everyone else how to conduct themselves. This is what the society should be like. This is how judges should be selected. This is how netas should be. We hold truth to power, but we don't face our own truths. Newsrooms are full of predators. And some of those who were let go of are back in positions of power, are being legitimized in more ways than one. And what are we doing about it?
You walked out at one point of time. I'm not going to mention names, but I think many people know. You walked out when you couldn't take that a person who was labeled a predator. Do they come with a certain learning when they come back after they have gone through the shame of being called a predator?
I don't know. And I don't think it matters. You have wronged so many people. And why should you get the benefit of the doubt now? That is one. And second, I don't think they change fundamentally. This person you're talking about, someone told me that she was his subordinate in a newspaper, and she went to him and said that, this is my script. And he said, your lines have to be tighter than your jeans.
Jeez.
You get away with it. How do you get away with that? And what do you do to the confidence of that girl? She left media as it happened. But what are we doing, honestly? And we let them be and we give them space. Because a lot of us don't want to be branded as trouble. You raise a stink in one place and 10 other newsroom leaders will say, okay, this one is bawaliya. That's the word they use, no? Bahut bawal hai. Rakho. So that's what happens, Everyone's
She's a
making
problem person because she
Yeah.
won't take it.
Yeah.
She won't just brush it off.
Yeah.
But, it happens often. There was a case when a reporter said, this was quite some time ago, when she said that a certain politician, rubbed his shoulder once in a wrong manner, then rubbed the arm in a wrong manner. Should we take it up? So I asked her, I said, what do you want to do? To go through the thing? I call up the politician, I take it up, we can issue a letter and all that. And she said, no. She said, I just want to let you know, मैं अपने तरीके से deal कर लूँगी, but I want you to know that this politician is like this. So don't put young reporters on the job who don't know how to handle. I will handle the man on my own. And she handled the man on her own terms. And also we sent out a message that, listen, watch out, because what you did, this time you're letting it go because the reporter doesn't want to go forward with it. But be careful. Otherwise, next time it becomes an issue. Now, that happens because also she knows that hum isko reporter, she got a sympathetic ear. Not every time that happens.
It doesn't happen because I think you would empathize with what they go through. Also, a lot of times it's non-verbal. A lot of times you don't know how to I remember about 15 years back, I went to the studio after a big interview had just finished with a very prominent minister. And the studio had different sets, so I had to do the news from another set. And the editor is asking the minister, would you like tea or coffee? He's not replying. He's not replying because he's staring. And it was a big newsroom and he kept staring. And I felt violated without him having said anything, without him having done anything.
The male gaze, as
how
they
do you
say.
quantify that?
Yeah.
And what do you say? That he was looking at me.
Yeah.
But you feel terrible.
Yeah.
And these things happen, and I'm sure a lot of reporters on the field go through this.
Yeah.
What are the mechanisms? We all have these Vishaka guidelines, POSH, etc.
No.
We are far away from making it a safe place for women to be, a place where they can thrive just on the basis of merit.
How? What do we do now next? What should newsroom managers, what should news media owners, editors, how do we go forward? Awareness to hai, right? How do we go forward? That mentality changes, or what do you put in place? Because it's not enough to put laws and rules, you're saying.
No, I think the younger workforce is much more aware and open. When you interact with people who have become journalists in the last 2 to 3 years, they are much more open to respecting boundaries. They understand. The women are much more vocal and they say, I will not put up with this. I think this is a generational shift. I think there is more awareness. But as leaders, we have to facilitate it. Because people in teams take cues from how their leader behaves. If somebody in my team calls me and says, I'm feeling depressed, and I can't explain why, but I don't think I'll be able to come to work and write today. One way of handling it is saying, okay, don't come, but don't make it a habit, or not giving that person the best assignments from there on.
Correct.
The other way of saying is that, how do you want me to help you? It's okay. I have been through this. I know a lot of people who have good days and bad days. Everyone does, in fact. And it's okay. Take your time and let me know how I can help you. Word travels, they will feel more comfortable. You have to create that culture. That culture building has to happen gradually, but it has to happen consciously.
Did you have any boss who did that with you? That empathy?
Yeah,
You did.
I did.
You're lucky then.
Yeah.
Right?
I was really supported and allowed to grow. And also, I think it also happens with bosses who are not insecure. Because
Male bosses, women bosses, both.
both. I've had some very good mentors.
Okay. Let me get to, finally, when are you coming on air? Everybody wants to know this. How can I do a show with you without knowing when are you coming on air, back on air?
Very soon.
Okay. In what role? You can't tell. This whole secretive thing.
We are in stealth mode, as we say. No, we are building something. We are building a team. We are putting together a big team. I know, and it's a great space to be in because every day you read headlines about people being laid off, and it's very unfortunate. And at a time like this, we are once again swimming against the tide, as you put it. And there are more jobs. We are looking for people who are talented. Let me make this pitch on your show.
Okay.
Who are passionate about news and who are not afraid to be thrown at the deep end in any role. So I'm working on it. I want to do the show when I'm ready.
Okay.
When I know it's going to work. I know that as people who, and it takes a lot of adjustment to, there are days when, and so much news has happened ever since I left.
You want to tell the story.
I'm like, yeah, I want to be there, and I would have said it in this way. But it has been a great learning experience for me in patience, in understanding when the time is right, and when a lot of people write to me, and every time I put a photo on Instagram, people are like, "Ye to theek hai, par show kab aayega?" Which is nice, but I want to tell you and everyone else that
you'll be back.
I will be back. It'll be a better show, hopefully, and we will put it out when we are confident that it'll work.
But don't you get this whole lot of auntie ji kind of advice that out of sight, out of mind ho jayega?
Oh, my mother tells me all the time, लोग भूल जाएंगे. I'm like, you. तो फिर मैं बचपन से तो एंकर थी नहीं, you know. Somewhere you build it. ठीक है, लोग भूल जाएंगे. I'll do something else.
But you don't get it from your mom that आज बहुत tired लग रही थी.
Oh, all the time. I don't like these clothes. Who got you this thing? Why are you wearing chenille? You know, बीच में कुछ fashion था. Everything was velvet. Like नहीं ये तो सिर्फ cushion पे अच्छा लगता है.
So you get it from your mom too.
All the time, yes.
Yeah. And do people ask you how you manage, since both you and your husband, both of you are journalists, you'll have different points of view and you worked in two different channels which had, kind of contrary views, editorial lines, and घर में झगड़े होते हैं कि नहीं?
No, but we have so my father-in-law was also a journalist.
Correct, yes.
And
legendary.
And my mother-in-law is very aware, and sometimes she ends up educating all of us and saying, "नहीं, you are wrong. ये ऐसे हुआ था और उसने ये कहा था."
Okay.
So it's a good, healthy sort of a mix. And now my children also have an opinion on most things, and they're like, "We don't want to discuss this." Or when I try to tell them something, like, "Don't be preachy. This is not Gravitas time. Like, please don't do this." So those things happen all the time. But I think it's
see, when most of us enter a room, they're saying, "Ay, आगे ज्ञान बांटने के लिए." Do you get that? Do you feel that after politicians probably in the pecking order, we are disliked the most because they feel ये pontificate करेंगे यहाँ पे भी.
Yeah, but I usually don't.
No, you don't.
I don't launch into this thing unless somebody is really prodding me, and maybe beyond a point, I tell them that watch my show. Please don't ask me here.
But they'll ask you, Gujarat कौन जीतने वाला है, हिमाचल कौन जीतेगा? I'm sure they'll ask you this.
Yeah, they do that.
Yeah, and if you don't say, then they'll say कि इनको आता नहीं कुछ.
They do it all the time. And somebody has even asked me, "Do you write your own thing?" Who writes those things for you?
Who writes it? Yeah.
I have a very good team.
Yeah. So I'm sure you get that a lot because there is a lot of talk that anchors they
तो
just
कुछ नहीं
आता.
Bottom of the brain chain.
That they actually just read what has been given to them. And sometimes it is true.
Yeah.
It is true that to look pretty is enough in some channels. And to present it enough, to present it convincingly, even if they are not your thoughts, is enough. And sometimes that's what is required.
Yeah.
The anchor might have thoughts of her own, but it's not asked of you.
Yeah.
It's given to you and you have to speak it. Did anybody try to do that to you? I mean, that was that one instance you did. But what about when you were junior? Sent out on the ground and said, कि ऐसे report करो.
Oh, yes. Somebody even wrote a PTC for me. Saying, go there, go to Vijay Chowk and say this. Well, I may not remember it. No, you have to say this. And I will write the package. Then you only do the PTC. Why are you sending me? No, you do it. Okay. So initially one sort of played along. Sometimes some of those stories were... I've had all... When I started in Hindustan Times, I remember I went to the editor before I got the position and I said I want to comment on foreign affairs, and I was still in college, and this Iraq war is happening and this is happening, and बहुत patiently he listened to me, and then he said, okay, I have an assignment for you, do a story on Dandiya nights in Jaipur. Like, what did I just tell you? I didn't say that obviously, but he said no, do it and make a funny piece. Okay, write something nice and funny, quirky. Okay, I wrote something, rejected it. He rejected it 10 times, Smita.
Okay.
Saying it's not funny enough. And I kept rewriting it. But that was the time when I think I was really young, and I thought, okay, isko to main impress karke I will write something that he likes. And then it made to the anchor story. But you did also today.
This is what I tell young reporters. Zaruri nahi that we are doing stories which we want today. बहुत घिसी-पिटी stories करनी पड़ती हैं. The first story television story that I went out was a funeral. It was.
But if I did something with somebody, the same thing with someone today, I think after the 4th rejection, I'd get a call from HR saying there's harassment happening in your team. So you can't do it now. They will walk out. I think you can't reject a story 10 times and say, no, I don't like it. What do you not like it? I don't like it. You can't do that. They will come to, I changed lines all the time in whatever I did. And then people would walk up to me and say, what in it did you have an issue with? and I had to have an answer. If you don't have an answer,
You can't say मेरे पास फुर्सत नहीं है.
फुर्सत नहीं है, मुझे नहीं बताना, अच्छा नहीं था. You can't say that.
Okay.
Or at least I don't. I mean, I don't like
So
it.
I believe it's the same with teachers. You can't, since you have young kids, you can't slash a page and say redo.
You
जैसे
can't- you
we
can't
used to
do-
हमारे pages में होता था ना, like पूरा ऐसे करके काट दिया and say redo. Redo, why?
Why?
What was wrong? Was the headline wrong? Not headline, well, titled
Yeah,
wrong? Was the intro wrong? Was the conclusion wrong? Was it too long? Word limit ज़्यादा हो गया? क्या किया मैंने गलत? Figure it out yourself. Redo. Now you can't do that because you will hurt the sentiments of the child. So just the same way, I guess reporters have to be, mollycoddled a little bit probably.
A little bit now, yeah. A
Now
lot.
you can't. You have to be tender and gentle.
Yeah. At least that's my model. I don't want to. I also feel that a lot of people, because I came from another city and I was alone and I was trying to make room for myself in a very big world that I did
Is Delhi
not.
cruel to people who come from smaller towns or from different towns and come into television media?
For me, it was. I think it was a very hard reset for me. I also came from a family where they gave me the best that they could, but my parents did not talk to each other in English or to us. We are from Rajasthan, and if they spoke very chaste Hindi, I thought I'd done something wrong. That's how it was, and very, very basic middle class upbringing, and suddenly you're thrown into this mix of people who I learned from a lot, but I did not have that exposure. I did not have parents who were IFS officers who had seen the world. I did not know their references. My father just had one rule: no TV, no music. पढ़ाई करो, ज़्यादा करना है तो gardening करो, painting करो. That's I did not know what movies they were talking about. So,
And then no contacts, no? Like Foreign Beat was all about daddy's friend and mummy's
so you're
batchmate.
always lost and you're trying to find something for yourself. The only thing that really helped me was reading. I have always been a reader, and so I knew theoretically most of the things they were talking about. I had not experienced them.
Recently, a woman journalist, told me about when she was working in an English news channel, and she also did not come from privileged background or an elite background, and she said that it's hard in Delhi because if you didn't come from that setup, because she says after the bulletin was over or after, everybody said, oh, let's go to the Oberoi coffee shop, let's go to 360, let's go to Matan, let's go, so we'll go to Gymkhana. They're all members. Their fathers were members. Their grandfathers were members. So sab chalo wahan pe, we'll go for a swim here, we'll go to the gym here, and they bonded like that. And if you didn't belong to that clique, nahi hota, your upward trajectory didn't happen in your career.
Yeah.
So it is harder. It was at least, but that's not the case anymore, isn't it? The newsroom has become more egalitarian like that, isn't it?
It has. I think people are not. People don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing that they're outsiders. I think I see a lot more confidence in younger people that they're not. They just say that okay, I am from such and such place. I don't know this, and that's okay. So I guess that's a good change.
Yeah.
Also, the internet has opened up the world so much more now that people are generally more aware. They're not as. When I came, I learned a lot of things for the first time while I was here. Right, this was 2005, although the internet was still there, but
it wasn't. Yeah. In the 90s, I remember actually conducting. We went out to a restaurant with 10 of my reporters and. Teaching them churi kanta se kaise khana hai, because they were going to go to do foreign beat stories. So I didn't want them to. It wasn't as if I was telling them ki chalega haath se kha lo, kya farak padta hai, it's okay. We are Indian, we can eat with our hand. But I didn't want them to feel small.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I didn't want a Indian Foreign Service officer to giggle with another reporter that isko churi kante se khana nahi aata. So we went out to a restaurant and I told them pizza ko aise karke chalo khate hai. And then churi kante se. And then, there was this one reporter who went on to join the BBC at one point of time who said, pushto tak mere yahan se koi foreign nahi gaya. It's the first time I'm traveling abroad from my 7 generations. But then equip your reporter to do that, know.
Yeah.
But like today I've seen that reporters don't mind. They have that confidence ki hum kar lenge, like,
Yeah.
we'll manage that.
Yeah.
We don't need to conduct this classes anymore to teach these these niceties or etiquette or something like that. They are learning on the job with great deal of panache.
Yeah.
I would say much more confidence than probably we had when we started.
Also, I think there's a shift, a very, at least I can feel that in society, that we are more, as a people, we are more confident of our place in the world. And we are not shy of saying that, okay, this is not what I do. I always say G, because to somebody who's older, or aap, because this is part of my culture. I'm not American. I cannot call my uncle by his first name and think it's okay, even if I have a great bond with him. That's not who I am. So I've accepted who I am, and I will say what I have to say. Sir, ma'am, जी, I know it's corporate culture में नहीं उसको appreciate किया जाता. पर आप मुझसे बड़े हैं तो I will say ma'am.
What about the workplace? Would you encourage young, students to take up journalism, get to television newsrooms, print newsrooms?
Yes, I think bright people who want to really do something good, interesting, creative should take it up. And I know the onus is on leaders to also change the workplace and make it more, incentivize it for the younger lot to join. But this has to be a collaborative effort. And I see the pushback that they can mount when they don't agree to something. Me Too is one example. And there have been other stories where people who've been 3 months into the newsroom have come and said, we have to do this because we feel so passionately about it. So we need more of those people. And I think we'll all be better off.
Chalo, I look forward to seeing this new avatar of a newsroom, of a channel, and of you as soon as possible. We want you back on the air.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Lovely talking to you. I've not had an interview like this. I don't know what I said,
Okay.
but I said whatever came to my mind.
Great. It was great. Straight from the heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Smita.
Thank you for watching or listening in to ANI Podcast with Smita Prakash. Do like or subscribe on whichever channel you have heard or seen this on. Namaste. Jai Hind.